Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us on a beautiful and sunny morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia. The weather's like perfect.
It's spectacular.
It's spectacular weather.
Although I like a little.
Well, you
more.
like some heat.
I like the heat.
And I know Michael really misses the hot, because then he really can cool off.
Exactly.
In the pool, so he misses that. But for many of us, this is beautiful weather.
It is.
But it's perfect weather, especially with a slight chill in the morning. It's perfect for you to grab your café con leche, get into a comfortable position, and watch some Today y Mañana.
Exactly.
Because we have some awesome guests that are going to be coming on later in the show. We're going to be joined by Dwayne and Robyn Jones from Corkscrew Racing, and then later in the show, Cody Lester from the fine Grainery is going to come on. So we got some great guests lined up for everyone this morning, and so we're looking forward to that tremendously. It's good to be on with you.
I'm delighted to be here again.
It's been a stretch.
No, just 1 week.
Was it 1 week that I wasn't on with you? Oh, yeah, I was on with you first week back from...
I was out of town last week.
Okay, so now it's back
but I'm back. It feels, maybe to you, it feels longer.
Well, that is, when you miss a week, it's been 2 weeks since I've last been on with you. So it feels longer than a week because it's been 2 weeks since I was actually here with you. So looking forward to that. Of course, love being here on the I Love CVille Network set. Love, of course, our fantastic presenter, Emergent Financial Services, and our awesome partners at Craddock, Serious Insurance, Matthias, Realty, Forward, Adelante. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in this morning. Be sure to send
and don't forget to like and share, and you can even subscribe if you want.
You can even subscribe and continue getting all notifications whenever we're live. Yeah, the little chat there. And of course, send us any questions, comments you may have. We will be sure to read them and let everyone know your awesome comments. So we always welcome our guests chiming in and tuning in.
Absolutely.
So we always look forward to that. And I don't know about you, but we got
like I said, this is great. I know nothing about these two particular guests, so I'd love to find out more about them.
So you're like in the audience position. You're
Absolutely,
like the audience surrogate. It's like Xavier,
and I don't have to type the questions. I could just
ask them. Yeah, you don't have to sit there and say, "Oh, is Alex going to really read my question?"
Exactly.
And, exactly. Just when you're not on, let's put it. Sometimes it's debatable whether we read your questions. Nick. When I'm on with Nick, he'll always be like, "Oh, Xavier has to ask the question. He's got to ask something." So I say we jump right into it if you're up for it.
I agree.
All right, let's do it. So our first guests this morning are the awesome Dwayne and Robyn Jones behind Corkscrew Racing. Dwayne, Robyn, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
No, it's fantastic to have you both on. So maybe as a start, for those who haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you first started Corkscrew Racing.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for having us on. We really appreciate it. So we sort of met through the running business. I was in my late 30s, early 40s, decided, hey, why not run a marathon? That's a little harder than it sounded at the time. It was sort of that midlife thing. I'll run a marathon. So started small and kept running and eventually ran several marathons. And at the time, we both were on second marriages or sort of finding our way. And Robyn was in the Outer Banks doing the Outer Banks running events. And so I had run that race and sort of bumped into her and sort of struck up a conversation. And I'm happy to say that she decided to move her children and join us in the mountains of Virginia.
And, wonderful. Now, literally, did you kind of bump into her while you were jogging? Is that what running?
Well, funny story. She was working with Outer Banks. I was down there at Kerala. We were vacationing. And she was running a special for the marathon. So my running team and partners were going to go down there and run the race, and she offered a coupon. We'd like to save a few bucks. So I show up at the running shop. She was having computer problems. And so she was there, and we were just chatting. I was like, oh, he has a nice smile, and she's cute. That kind of thing. And then fast forward, then bumped into her at the actual running expo, and at some urging from my fellow runners, was like, maybe you should talk to her. And so that's how we got started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And from that, how did that kind of grow into, so you have the love of running, you have true love, and now how do you get to Corkscrew Racing?
Right. And so So I had a running group that we met 3 or 4 times a week. We ran at the local hospital. We would run in the dark at 5 in the morning, and we had run past this beautiful winery, and we'd see it in the dark. And most historically, again, our business is a little over a decade old, and back then most running races, Saturday morning, do a 5K, meet at the high school, run a race, everybody gets a little medal or a high five, and everybody goes home. And so fast forward, I came back to this winery in the evening and saw the sunset, and I thought, whoa, what a great place to have a race. And again, at that time, most races, or at least almost all races, are morning races, cooler. And I said, well, what if we do a sunset race? And what if we do it at a venue that serves wine? And that's really where it took off, because in the early stages it was, let's run a 5K and get all the runners, that we have evolved really to an experience for the runners, lots of walkers that like the camaraderie of a race, like the camaraderie of running, and then to end it at a beautiful site and have a glass of wine and see a sunset. It really opened our eyes. And then it's Robin's business. She took off from there. So.
Well, I unfortunately had some health issues a couple years after we were married, but it allowed me to have time to say, I think we can make this like a real business.
A natural business.
And so, created the website, business license, and all of that. And we went from 2 events a year to 7 or 8.
Wow.
And so a lot of them are in Nelson County. But we've done them all around. We've actually gone out of state too. And,
that's amazing.
Interesting, because when I saw Corkscrew racing, I'm saying to myself, I love the word corkscrew, but for different reasons, right? So I'm saying, how did they get that? But I like the explanation. That's perfect.
Right. It really came to it, and again, it was just sort of this aha moment of running past this winery in the dark, and then coming back later, going, "Wow, that's kind of cool to see that at night," and then running at a different time of the day, which again. Years ago, really wasn't not many races you could find that started at that 5 or 6. And again, we live in the most spectacular area with an abundance of wineries, an abundance of views, and so we also came up with the tagline, or she came up with the tagline of "Running never tasted so good." So
that's good. That's good.
That's really the tagline to the business, and then it just sort of fed from there as to working with different wineries around the state, and cideries and breweries, and our most recent race at we have a margarita 5K, so we've expanded our spirits, if you will. So
which is all
we need to change our logo.
But all good,
because it's wine, cider, beer runs. I'm like, we got to change it up and get margarita in there too. So.
The margarita 5K.
The margarita 5K, yeah.
So are all the races 5K, or and when you run in a winery, do you run literally within the winery? Do they kind of allow you to do that, or is it outside? How does that work?
It depends on the location. We've run some completely contiguous on the property. We never leave, and some we run on the roads, and some there's a combination. So it really depends on our partners and location and what the course.
Safety.
I like to be, don't run as much as I used to. I'm sort of course logistics and safety, and speak on the mic. She runs the business, the marketing, and all of that as her profession. And so we try to find courses. And there's some courses that just aren't meant. We also are very not particular, but we like good wine. So we've had a few
and beer.
research trips, and we like, this is not really the right place.
Well, it makes sense. If you run 5K and I don't care, I'm ready to sit down my glass of wine, and like, oh man, now what?
Right.
Exactly. So what's the process kind of like? So how does it work in terms of, someone's interested, go to the website, do you sign up for them, find it? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, it's an online registration. And we do have race day registration, but we really encourage online registration. So to make sure you get your shirt, because everyone gets a tech shirt. It helps us. Instead of a finisher medal, they get a finisher glass. And glass meaning Yeah, and then we have a post-race party and award ceremony. So we recognize the overall finishers and age group winners, and then we also we encourage teams. So we do biggest team and best team costume.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun ways to kind of socialize too, and
Yeah.
bring people that you know, and kind of do it as a little team, and you don't have to go solo.
Oh, and people get creative.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with this, if you were able to see some of the images for the Margarita 5K, I don't know if you hopped on and looked, but people get creative.
Yeah,
creative.
Yeah, that's out there.
Are there any with like the big
Yeah.
hats and stuff? So I guess so when you said age groups, I mean, do you find there are people that attend? I mean, sign up for the race, but really aren't necessarily in shape like me. Like if I signed up, I could probably run a mile and then I'd drop dead. So how does that work?
Walker friendly.
Oh, walker
Definitely.
friendly,
Yeah,
okay.
we see all ages and stages.
Yeah, and it's really, we've, again, grown to where they plan it as an event. So, again, unlike a 5K, say at a track or something like that, where you come, you run, you go home, there's always an after party.
Okay.
And so that encourages the social aspect, that encourages them to find their friends. Something that we found, or I found when I began running, was accountability. And so you'll let yourself down, but you won't let your running friends down to show up at 5 a.m. on a Friday to run 6 miles. And so if you have that group, and we've seen that in our races because we have a lot of repeat runners, and we see them come out. And it's like, oh, hi, well, yes, you're grouped together. And teacher groups will do it as a teacher. We have some folks at the local hospital that will band together and say, oh, let's do a 5K. And again, ours is walker friendly. And so it's only 3.1 miles.
Most of them. We do, to answer your question, we do have a 4-miler. And we've done all the way up to 10 miles, but we found the sweet spot of 5K to 4 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So usually they're 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah, it's
is
more
typical.
reasonable.
Yeah.
It's typical. And that's kind of nice because that is, you're also entering an atmosphere where like you're encouraged to finish it because there's something at the end that you're doing. You're not finishing it merely for the sake of finishing it. You're getting to the end where there's your kind of reward.
Right.
And we market to adults because most of them are where it's at wineries, cideries. But they bring their kids. And we actually, our oldest repeat runner is
Harry Kahn.
Harry Kahn Jr. He's 85 years old.
Wow. And he drives from Powhatan.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody may drive him, but he is 85.
I think
the other thing that's
awesome.
that we've done and sort of developed over the years is the partnership with the local businesses. A lot of these wineries and breweries and cideries, they don't need help at the 2 o'clock hour. But we'll bring a group of runners, and we've switched to sort of more running races. We do have had some sunset races, but we've generally, we're sort of out of their hair before their normal crowd comes in.
I got you.
And so they like the benefit because we bring them typically 200 to 250 runners and friends and plop them at their site. And, again, some leave, but for the majority they stay. They either have lunch, if there's a food truck, or music. And so it becomes this great partnership with local businesses in the community and those types of things. It really makes a nice mix for them and us.
That is nice.
fantastic.
So what are some typical times of day when they occur, or does it vary?
It's typically 9 in the morning, and then Saturday,
Saturdays usually.
and then it'll again 45 minutes to an hour. Most of the runners are in, and then they'll fade into the after party where they get their wine glass, their tasting, or whatever, and then again there's usually some food,
Music.
and then and music.
Yeah.
So
and then the awards and
That is a nice, it's a nice
absolutely.
thing. And especially like on Saturdays, a great way to go start your weekend.
Right.
You're not waking up at 5
Right,
a.m.
5 a.m., right.
And maybe you're coming all the way from Powhatan. You wake up a little earlier.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're waking up at a reasonable hour, getting somewhere at 9 and really starting
And
out
then,
there.
we'll have the Margarita 5K in a couple of weeks, and we've had that for 3 or 4 years now.
This is the fourth year.
Fourth year.
Fourth year.
And I usually give a cheers at 10:30 with a margarita, and no one complained. I was like, "Is it too early?" And everybody says, "No, this is perfect." I was like, "Okay, great."
I feel like when you run 4 miles,
That's
you have
right.
the right
Absolutely,
no
exactly.
one can complain that
That's
it's
right.
too early.
That's
You know,
right.
just
That's
your, Your response can be, it was also too early to run 4 miles.
That's
Not
right.
anybody.
When they stop coming, I guess we'll stop serving.
There you go, exactly. So what was it like to take the plunge and say, okay, we love doing this, we're going to actually make this a business? What was it like to take that entrepreneurship plunge?
I liked the challenge, and I had been in event management for, several years at that point, so I knew we could do it, and we'd already tested the waters, with the two events that we were doing every year. So no, it was fun. It was.
I think also too, we were a blended family at that point. She has 2 kids. I have 2 kids, and her kids were in high school, and so it allowed her to be flexible with timing and those types of things. Now we've since recruited them all for help, and now they're all gone. So we had to recruit other friends to help with that, but. They like working for a bottle of wine, so it's a good thing.
Exactly. It's probably not the hardest job to recruit for.
Right.
Recruit for.
Well, and we haven't mentioned, through COVID, we actually came up with the idea for a Jeep event. So we created like a little side, the Corkscrew Life, and so we held a couple Jeep events over the last.
So what's the Jeep
3 years.
event? Tell me, what's that one?
Yeah.
What happens there?
It's we started Jeeper Fest, and it's at Bold Rock Hard Cidery, and there's a national in May. It's Go Topless Day, and it's basically Jeep take their tops down.
Wranglers,
it's like
Gladiators.
Jeep Wranglers,
Oh, okay.
convertibles.
Yeah.
And so we sponsored the first one, and it was a huge success. Jeep people are. I'm a Jeep person, so I can say this with all confidence. We're crazy. We'll spend money. We'll spend money on things we don't need, and Jeep people are obsessed with their vehicles, and so that it's basically it's a offshoot of the running community. The Jeep has a community.
Yes.
There's a Jeep wave, and those folks that know what I'm talking about, if you have a Jeep, you wave when a Jeep comes past you. You pull up in a parking lot. Hey, where'd you get your tires? There's always a discussion, and there are other groups like that.
Yeah, a friend of mine has that with Land Cruisers.
Right. There's other groups and other car groups, but the Jeep is really community based, and we work with local charities and return that money, a lot of the money to them. We've worked with Samuel Supper to do that, and so it's really again, it's bands come together. Contest for the best Jeep, biggest tires, those types of things. Again, good community and good support and
a fun time.
And a fun time.
Fun time.
And we've hosted the largest Go Topless Day event in the state of Virginia.
Whoa.
So we
Wow.
have that.
Wow.
So,
That's nice.
yeah, it is nice.
Wow.
I think I made that clear for a while there. I said topless. I said, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Not that.
Soft
Maybe
top.
in France,
Yeah.
but not. Yeah. Different location.
Right.
Different location for sure. But I think that's what I kind of loved about the idea when I went online, saw it, is it's sometimes in life, right, you need that push to go out and have a good time on a weekend. And it's kind of that thing to say, I'm going to go out and hang out with other people who have
Same interest. Yeah.
similar interests.
Exactly.
Even if that interest is Jeeps, or even if that interest is running, it's to kind of push to sometimes you got to push yourself in life. You can easily get into a rut where like, I don't feel like going out today. I'll just stay home today. But like, you know what? Other people, I've signed up for this. Other people that I know are going out and running. It's good for me to run. It's good exercise. And I get to enjoy some wine or some beer, some cider at the end. And it's almost like it's a way to bring people together to go out and have a good time, whereas they otherwise might not do it.
Right.
It's positive vibes. I mean, that's all you feel. It's people, I think, some people that, let's say, they consider themselves runners. Again, you don't have to be a runner. You can be a walker, jogger, skip along. It doesn't, that come and then they get it. Like, oh yeah, no one's looking at me and going, oh, she's really slow, or, whatever. It's truly, it's a good experience, and everyone feeds off that happy vibe for sure.
Yeah, and I've said it for years of doing this, I've never met an unhappy runner. So you've taken the time to either train, get up early, and decide to show up. And then, like Robyn said, the positive vibes to go out and do that physical thing. And it's, for some, we have a lot of folks that this is their first 5K, their first time they've done 3.1. And so their joy and their energy, we feed off of that. Yes. So when we say in its event, it is work to put these things together and plan, but it is a joyful Saturday morning. And that energy and vibe that we get from the community that comes out to run is phenomenal.
That's fantastic.
And I guess, I mean, like everything else, right? I mean, you know, sometimes you train for something, right? But you just have to push. If you're just running by yourself every morning to train, you push yourself. Then you're with a crowd, and they themselves push you, right? Because like, wait a minute, I gotta keep up with those fellas, right? So you just push yourself, and before you know, it's like, wow, I didn't realize I could do what I just did, right? And the other thing is commonality, right? So, you know, we talk about Jeeps, people like Jeeps, or they like running. When you go to an event, sometimes it's like you don't know what people like, so it's a lot harder just to introduce yourself and talk to people. But here, it's like, well, I know people like running because they wouldn't be here. And two, in the sense of a Jeep, is like, I like Jeeps. I could go to a guy and say, hey, I like a Jeep. Where'd you get those tires? Or whatever it is about Jeeps that they like, and they could talk about it. And there you are. Now you have a friendship, right? So it's a lot easier than you know you already have something in common. And like Alex said, it kind of says, hey, you know what? I should do this because otherwise I'm just going to stay home and doing it.
Right.
That's fantastic. And we have a commenter, Jess Walters Thompson, who was on Jess Flat from last week, says, I'm so excited about this company, and I've got a big idea. I'm going to be reaching out to you guys to connect. She's a huge, Jess is fantastic. She is an awesome advocate for Orange County.
Okay, perfect.
Orange County, City of Orange. She loves that area, and she's helped so many people there. So I just you'll be hearing from a viewer.
Perfect. Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. Thanks for commenting, Jess, and watching today. Ricardo Cruz Duran watching the show this morning. Thanks for tuning in, Ricardo. Always a pleasure to have you in. So I guess it's been fantastic having you on. Let us know. So what's upcoming, and where can people get in touch with you guys and find out the upcoming races?
The Margarita 5K is September 14th. And that's at Plaza Antigua. It's in Waynesboro. That is our first event away from
the traditional winery.
The traditional winery cidery. But Chris is awesome. Chris O'Neill is there. He has a great venue. An outdoor venue right next to the restaurant. So they do concerts there, all kinds of things there, and Jeep events too. October 26th, we have the Monster Mash 5K at Bold Rock Cidery.
Nice.
Monster Mash 5K.
I think it's Halloween.
It's Halloween themed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then December 7th, we have the Bold Blitzen 5K at Bold Rock. So those are our last 3 events for the year. Awesome. And yes, corkscrewracing.com. That's where you find the information.
Yeah, really.
You can't miss it. Corkscrewracing.com.
Right.
Easy to remember.
Very easy to remember. So.
And Facebook and Instagram, you can look that up and find us and follow us. And
absolutely.
Check out what we do.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, Dwayne Robyn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you for having us.
No, thanks.
Thanks.
And be sure to check out corkscrewracing.com.
Hard to forget that. Really.
Exactly. No, easy to remember. Easy to remember. And
that's interesting. I mean, I didn't even know things like that existed. Right?
Yeah,
Isn't that great?
Beautiful. It's figuring out ways, right? How can you have a business that brings people together? And there's always a new way to bring people together.
Absolutely.
Right? There's always a way to connect people, which is...
That's why I love entrepreneurs. They always come up with ideas, right? Well, you and I said, how is that possible? And it's like, wow, look at that. You know?
Exactly. They think of it. That's kind of the beauty of entrepreneurship is the wow factor of like, it's not just people thinking up things that everyone else already thought of. It's people thinking up ideas that you're like, oh man, I never thought of that. And like, yep, that's why they're an entrepreneur, right?
And the other nice thing is that it's, even though they're mostly 5Ks, but they're also on 3.1. Because I mean, just yesterday when I worked down the garbage.
Well, 5K is 3.1 miles.
Is it?
That's how it translates.
Okay. See, I learned something every day. I didn't realize that. And so when I brought down the garbage yesterday, right, I ran up the driveway and I realized, I mean, as you know, our driveway is way uphill, as you know. But I ran up. I said, let me run up. I got up to the top. It's like I'm huffing and puffing. I said,
hamburger.
I got to get in shape here. This is like ridiculous.
Well, it's walkable. You could be the person skipping. You can skip the.
Well, I'm not that good of a skipper.
You know, we'll see you
I'd
like
rather
5 hours
jog than
later.
skip.
We'll be like, all right, see you in 5 hours, David.
So 3.1, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's funny. Nicholas sent a comment and he goes, "Pops was thinking of a different topless with the topless."
Well, it's just,
I almost said to him like, "Pops, I think he means no top on the Jeep."
I thought it was just men run topless. So I wasn't thinking of anything else. Hey, let's not go there.
But no, exactly. It's a great idea, and be sure to check that out.
Absolutely.
And from one great guest to another great business, we are excited
I
know we can already
This is
see it
pretty
here.
amazing.
You're about to see it as well, the audience. We're excited to welcome to the show this morning Cody Lester. He's the founder of The Fine Grainery. Cody, thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. It's so cool to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. Great to have you. So for those who first meet you, how did you first become interested in woodworking?
Well, I'll say that first, thank you guys for having me. It's so awesome to be here. To get the chance to talk about, with a broader community about, my business.
Sure.
So, I really appreciate that. So it started out many years ago, a few years post-college. I graduated in 2009. And so it was a tough economy at that time. Mm-hmm. And so
I remember.
and so trying to get enough money to pay for student loans, and so it kind of started out of necessity. I just gotten a new job, and it wasn't enough to really make a huge dent to my what I wanted to make a dent in my student loans. And so I'm like, do I get another job? What is it? And I found myself like going to work, going to the gym, coming home, and like I just wanted to do something. I just felt bored, And so I just started making cornhole boards. And so that's how this business started, was cornhole boards. I'd always been interested in wood. My dad he's a big inspiration in my life, and so he's always doing wood stuff. And so, combined with the fact I wanted to do something with my hands and I wanted a little bit extra income, like maybe I can, make some wood stuff. And so I started out making cornhole boards. I petitioned a friend. I'm like, hey, hypothetically, do you think if you wanted a cornhole board, would you be interested? And they're like, what's he talking about? And they're like, yeah, kind of. I was like, I'll make you a cornhole board. And so that's kind of how it all began. My friends Kathy and Justin, and so I made one set, I made two sets, and I found myself always having an order. And then from 2013 until like 2019, I was just making a whole bunch of cornhole boards. I made so many of them, in fact, that I get like some trauma when I look at them. I made so many. It's just like, I'm like, why did I do that? But it really allowed me to sort of find my interest, like creatively, in like these woods, and so it sort of allowed me the exposure to it, one, and also I was able to sort of be creative and make these cornhole boards. And then so I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so with the birth of our daughter, our first child, my wife and I was like, well, maybe I'll transition my business away from cornhole to make some stuff that's different, like furniture, make some products maybe, and just kind of give me the ability to sort of like feel out like the woodworking space, like what I really enjoyed doing.
Right.
Before it was like painting and like pine, like construction lumber, and that was like good. It got me started, but it's no comparison to like these really fine woods, and I really wanted to learn how, like, what's the right way to do stuff. And that, that yearning caused me to sort of branch into this direction and sort of start to make products. And so, that's the start.
And is the products a brainchild, or does your wife or somebody else say, I wish I had something like this, and you say, wait a minute, I think I can do that?
It's definitely that. But it started out like for example, I had just gotten like a laser. I really wanted to find, when I first started, I was doing like, all right, I made cornhole boards. I was fortunate enough to always have an order for like 6 years. And I just thought that would just transition to furniture and I would always have an order. And like, I found very quickly that that's not the way that works. So I transitioned in 2020. That happened to be a very tough year. So January 2020 was whenever I started my business. And so I transitioned 21 or 22 to start making small products. and doing craft shows and farmers markets and festivals and things like that. And so if you're going to be doing that, you really need to have a bunch of product.
Yep.
Exactly, sure.
And so it started out like, this was the very first one that I made. This is a tic-tac-toe game.
Ah, okay.
So you
So
open it up and
it's got magnets, and then so it's got
That's pretty neat.
acrylic that's been laser cut X's and O's. And so a couple different materials like the maple plywood and then the walnut and the plastic as well. And so that's how it started. And then I ended up having all of these little like leftover pieces cut out from the walnut, and it started like, well, what do I do with these? And my wife was like, well, what about badge reels? And so I was like, cool, like, you know, basically this little wooden piece that's glued to a retractable badge reel was created initially because I had just an excess of these little pieces here.
Sure.
And so I would put those on the laser, do the engraving of the design, and then eventually transition into some more like sort of premium options with like more of like the laser cut acrylic and like these cool designs. And so that's how that started. And then I also created the next product was I have all these little O's from the inside of this. What do I do with those? And so I started making 4-in-a-row games. That uses the inside of those. And so like that's how it really began, was like I really didn't want to waste. I think there's plenty of value here in this wood. So what can I, it's brainstorming, what can I do? And my wife had the great idea of badge reels. And, you know, early on I was just selling a bunch of badge reels, and I was a little bummed because I was like, this was not like what I wanted to do. This is not what I wanted, but like I was selling them in handfuls. And so I'm like, well, I had to be grateful because many days like at a craft show, like that saved me. And it's really brought me into where I am now currently, is, you know, being of sorts a badge reel guy. And then it sort of turned into these it's different acrylic that fits into one another.
Gotcha.
So it just fits together like pretty tightly, and then it just sort of comes together, and you know, you got stuff like that. So I have a bunch of designs, and that's really how it began, was with this tic-tac-toe game plus my wife's idea, and then it sort of transitioned into like, well, obviously if I'm going to be doing these events, I need more products.
Right.
And so have like cutting boards and charcuterie boards, and then I have a nested charcuterie board that fits together. It looks like a couple that's hugging. That became like the next big product, because you can kind of mix and match your woods, and you know, find a. If you look at this grain, this is a cheese slicer, but like it's just so beautiful. So this is a cheese slicer made from walnut, black walnut, and so it's got this really beautiful grain, and so. You know, it's
got the wire.
It's got a wire there with 2 loops on the end, and so it just kind of fits through there, and it really helps slices the cheese like really well because it's such a thin wire.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
That's really neat. Yeah.
And so
beautiful wood.
Yeah,
That's
and
the key.
that's really what got me into this, because I was making cornhole boards. I was like, I'm painting. Like people would call me an artist, and I was like, I'm not an artist. It's just paint. And then like it took me a while to really, you know, really find my groove and like really consider myself to be an artist, you know, and now it's with the woods. I've got this beautiful wood. I buy it rough cut. I plane it down. I see how beautiful it is. That you can't even tell how beautiful it is like before you plane it down. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And it's like, what can I do to really highlight this piece of wood? And so I try my best to minimize waste, you know, and make products that have a use. Like, for example, this is a salt cellar. I've got magnets in the base, in the lid that sort of click together.
Yes.
And so you can kind of rotate it off. And so it's like, you know, it's made from
neat,
you know, this beautiful walnut with this
really
grain.
is.
And it's like, you know, it's like I feel lucky to be able to sort of make stuff like this and sort of bring these products to life. Like, I mean, I could show walnut all day. It's just beautiful, you know.
That's nice.
It's all,
walnut is a
walnut,
beautiful piece of wood.
no
You have a really, I know it's a heavier one. You have a really interesting piece right there that also seems really useful.
Yeah, so like it sort of became like my business model kind of became like, these are all products that are beautiful, one, because of the wood that they're made with. But I really wanted them to all have a purpose, because I was making these like cheese slicers and the salt cellars and like have a whiskey smoker, and it's like, what else can I make? And so I started making these magnetic key holders. And so there's an embedded magnet here in the base,
Look at that.
or underneath the shelf.
So it's not like a hook and you just boom.
Yeah, and so it's got a really strong magnet, and it just holds the keys. And you know, it's got the embedded keyhole slots on the back, and just slot it on the wall. And got my nice little logo on there, and you know, it's kind of this really beautiful yet functional piece that, it serves a purpose. And so that's over the last year or so, I'd say that's kind of become my business model is, I lend myself more towards things that have a purpose.
Purpose, exactly, yeah.
Like,
It's beautiful and it has
it's
a
beautiful
purpose.
for one, and like that's enough for some people.
Right.
And like for me, I really like the utility of things, like things that actually have a purpose. So like another one is this herb stripper. And so you can like strip off like rosemary and like cilantro, and it works great for kale. And it's like, people are like, that is so, one, it's useful because, you don't want to, obviously you can't use your fingers to pull the leaves off, but like, this is a whole lot faster and it's beautiful and it's made from like walnut and it's so smooth, it's if you want to feel.
Yeah.
And so like that's.
Oh, this is beautiful, yeah. And it's true, you take that rosemary, go, all
Yeah.
those
But
leaves come out.
especially things that also like, what I like is things that touch food. Because so much, I mean, you walk into any kind of like basic protein store thing, it's almost impossible to find stuff that is not really plasticky, really cheap.
I know,
Your
it's
basic
true.
basic things,
Yeah.
right? Your boards, your storage containers. It's almost all plastic. It's almost all made in places where like, oh man, how safe is that to touch my food?
Absolutely, yeah.
And here you have something that's beautiful, and you know that what's touching your food is wood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've all been treated with like food safe materials, and so it's all like basically a very basic mineral oil and a coconut wax mixture, and it's just very easy to apply, and it's not going to be harmful. And that kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about a little bit was you can't really like the production, like the somewhat mass production of these. It doesn't make any sense for anyone to do that.
No.
Because there's like plastic herb strippers that you can buy wholesale for like less than $1 and sell them for like $10.
Yeah.
And so like it makes no sense to just make this nice wood, but I feel like I'm doing a service of like making this American made. All these products have been made at my home in my basement, and so I've sort of developed, it's not brand new, but like I've found a way to be able to produce these materials like efficiently and quickly, and then to turn around and be able to sell them on my website and in the community at like craft shows and things like that.
And Cody, I'm curious. So what is this?
This is a whiskey smoker. So this was.
That's what I thought you said. I don't know.
This
what that
is
means.
This product was sort of a revolution of last year, at least for me, because I'm selling this stuff, and like this is such a unique product that. So what it is a whiskey smoker or a cocktail smoker. Like smoked old fashions, things like that. And so what you can do is have like a whiskey pour or a bourbon pour, or make an old fashioned. Put this on there. Add a pinch of chips, like wood chips, like cherry or apple or pecan. Take a torch and smoke it, and the glass fills full of the smoke. So to sort of add a little bit of a unique blend of flavor.
So all you got to do is put that on top of the glass.
And use a butane torch and torch it, and it goes down the hole. There's a little screen in there that keeps the chips out with a little tiny screen that you just press up with your finger. It's just precision fit in there with my CNC.
So the smoke goes down.
The smoke goes down and it fills the glass, and it just sits there on the liquid. And so you can kind of swish it around or just let it set with just pure time. And then take it off, and you kind of have the theatrics of the smoke rolling out, and let people smell it. The maple that I like to burn in there. It smells like a campfire, and it really gives people these like, a different flavor. I tell people all the time, you can, if you're into like whiskey or bourbon and you have like your drink that you have as your go-to, you can sort of start to play with the flavor with this if you enjoy a little bit of smoke, and mix the chips and do a lot with the same drink that you've been having and just add a little bit of a twist to it. And so this product here, I started making them in April of last year. And by the end of December, I had sold over 250 of those.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was like completely blown away with like, wow, how popular that product was. And that's really the product that sort of helped me, like, it's tough, owning a small business and like being in charge of the production of this. And it's like, you're like, for me, I think the biggest thing was like, obviously I started out making these things by hand. And, when I have to have the volume of the materials to sell, on the weekends, I was having a tough time keeping up with I was selling more than I could make in a week because I have a full-time job too.
Oh, oof.
I think people walk in my tent,
weekends.
at a craft show, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is obviously your full-time gig." And I say, "No, actually, it's not. Like, I just I do this on the side. It's a side hustle with a full-time effort because it really does. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and so I use CNC to help me get the products made. I hired someone last October, shout out to Alex, to help me sand these materials because, it's very easy to make them. Most of the time is spent, making it look great and feel wonderful, have that nice texture, nice and smooth, and a high quality material or product. And so, I started using CNC to sort of make these in bulk.
What is CNC? For those
CNC is computer nominal control.
Oh,
and so
yes.
you guys had a guy on here, Precision Craft, a couple months ago.
Yep.
And so I use CNC. I have a large format one, and so I'm able to basically just churn out products.
The basic shape.
The shape, and most of the time, 75% of the time is spent sanding and just, rounding the edges and making it look perfect, dipping it in oil and then getting it on the website.
The wax.
Exactly, and put it on a shelf. And so my business model, for those listening, my business model is to make things in small batch production. And so I make these, I never just make one item. I make 50 or 100 or more, and then I have enough for my shows on the weekend, and then also put it on the shelf to sell on my website and Amazon and Etsy as well. And so that's sort of my thing, is making things in small batch production, make them well, make them very high quality. Because again, it doesn't really make sense to do that unless you're doing it in bulk.
Yeah. Now, do you make one first or a few first?
Yeah, so this one was I think ended up being 3 versions before this. First version didn't have a top. This is the tic-tac-toe game. First version didn't have a top. I was like, it'd be really cool if I could embed magnets and have a top on it so that if it's in transportation or in a purse somewhere, it's kind of like for kids waiting for their food at a restaurant, you don't want the pieces to be strewn about, and the middle piece is twice as deep to store the extra piece to be able to store, to be able to play the game without switching X's and O's each time. And so each one of these I get a test or 2 tests until I feel comfortable with one, the product itself, and then to be able to I have to be able to make them very quickly so that, I can't spend a ton of time on these because I have a lot of products, and again, I have a full-time job. So it's I really have to focus my efforts on what I can make quickly and efficiently and, sort of trim down the process as much as possible without sacrificing any of the quality. Because the quality is sort of why is the why behind all of this, why have a cheese slicer that's wooden? It's amazing looking for one, and it also serves a purpose.
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah. I'm just curious, because, you work with the magnets. How did that brainstorm come to, there's a little tiny magnets, and what do you
so I had to find a way to, one, size the holes. This one was made completely on a laser. Okay. So it's a laser that's a lot it is basically a CNC, but it has a laser head on it, and so it's shooting a laser beam out, and it's engraving the wood or it's cutting the wood. And so I was able to, with many tests, figure out what is the size and how much power and what speed to run that laser at, so I get a perfect hole for this little tiny magnet, and then drop a little bit of glue in there and press it with enough tension to hold the magnet itself without coming out. And so
that's so neat.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
and for me, I just love making those products. For one, this was really what started it, was that, and it began everything. And I love to sort of brainstorm. I have tons of ideas, and I
want to see that one.
This one here. So this one, I
can't
believe I forgot this one. This is the bread bow knife. So also made from walnut. And so one of my coworkers is like, "Hey, I'm really into this sourdough making. I really think you should make a bread bow knife." I'm like, actually, it's on my list of things to make. And so, I don't know, about 6 months later, I came up with the design of the bow knife. I designed the shape of it, so that the handle kind of swoops into the bow part. The bow is keeping the blade on tension, so there's a lot of tension to keep the knife on tension to get through a thick crust of like a sourdough, and it's a really thin and also very sharp blade to sort of, slab up your sourdough bread.
Oh,
That's
nice.
fantastic.
That is fantastic.
I was looking at it. I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah, it was kind of concealed by this box here.
And it was like, what is that? And once you picked it up, I figured, because I've seen, bread knives, and I said, I bet you that's and that's pretty neat, because you could also kind of, you
can find your size.
The size, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really neat.
Wow.
That's really neat.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
thank you.
I think the beauty is, like you said, it's in life. I think there is a craving to have not just because I think people already know that if you want something beautiful, artisanal, I think already associates with that. But I think there's a craving now more and more for I also want some of my functional things to be good for me, beautiful, and high quality. I don't want the things I use every day to be cheap and breakable.
Exactly.
So and you fit that beautifully because you're doing it away with the batches. Exactly. That means you're not paying. The customer doesn't have to pay the premium because somebody's literally making it one by one at a time. So you've got the batch, but you have there's a quality to it that it's not a mass-produced something that'll break in 2 weeks. Yeah,
they say, or the saying is like form or function, but I really feel like you can have both of those, especially with wood. Because all of these things, they do serve a purpose, and that's the primary reason why I think they exist.
Yeah,
but the extra benefit, depending on if you're a form person or a function person, there's one additional thing too. It's either the form and the function.
Exactly.
So you have both of those at once.
That's awesome.
No, that's beautiful. Imagine putting that. I mean, you have a cheese board, right, and you have that cheese cutter. I mean, that's just a beautiful piece on your table, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to just a bunch of knives and wow.
Yeah. Well, and part of my business, the problem with having high quality stuff is that you have a customer, and then they don't need to buy from you again. So you don't have a consumable product. So it's like, all right, so I make these cheese slicers, and so like, what other product similar to that can I make that can also appeal to the person that's already come to my, say, a craft show and seen the quality of my stuff, and like, what else can he produce that is of high quality? And so that's one of the reasons why I've kind of gone in this direction of like, I kind of have these like kitchen utensil-y like things, like kind of speak to that sort of environment of people that are, making their own cheeses or like their charcuterie boards, because I sell the boards too. Yeah. And like the stuff just it lasts a long time, and so I want to see them again, and I need to have more stuff. Right. And so,
I guess that's the downside of making something really, really good
quality,
right? Like the old days, you used to make a washing machine that would last 20 years. Now it's like, after 8 years,
exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. But like you said, the way people keep coming back is like, okay, I could use that as well. And once you've gotten one thing, it's probably like, well, why would I buy something else cheap when I know that this one will last?
Exactly. And so the other thing is like, so because I use the batch production to put it on a shelf to serve my website or my craft shows, it's like I have these things on demand, basically. So if someone orders off my website, if they want an engraving, so I've got my little logo in there. If they want like a name on this, they can just add that through the website. And I have these on a shelf. I can just grab it. I can create the name design, send that proof to them, and say, that looks great, you make it. And so they know what they're getting before they receive it. And they potentially have already seen my stuff in person, and so they know of the quality. And then, so I'm kind of built for gift giving, and Christmas is coming up, and I'm preparing now.
These are perfect for that, right?
Especially with the engraving.
Yeah, that makes it
personalized touch. Yeah.
And the other thing is, how many times, like, if you like to cook, a lot of times you just, on your counter, you have a lot of things, like the salt, the cheese, and so to have it such that they're beautiful pieces makes it more, visually is like, okay, my kitchen's not a mess. It's just
when you entertain, it's like you're not hiding.
My classic kitchen with my beautiful black walnut pieces.
Exactly. This is artwork here, which I have to use.
Well, you're not going to be like, I gotta hide the salt jar. I gotta hide this. I gotta hide the knives. No, you can leave this stuff out because it looks. It looks
exactly
beautiful.
right.
It looks like a piece of art.
Exactly. Yes.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. Well, Cody, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Where, so people want to find you, I mean, what are some of the locations you're at, and what's the website?
So primarily you can find me on the website, thefinegrainery.com. All these products are sold there. You can also find me on Etsy, on Amazon as well.
Oh, awesome. All under the Fine Grainery?
Yes. Like if you search for if you search for like salt cellars on walnut salt cellar, you'll find this one on Amazon.
Okay.
So I think it's the only walnut salt cellar that you can find on Amazon that's actually made from walnut. So, but yes, you can find me website, Etsy, The Fine Grainery, Amazon, The Fine Grainery. I also sell on the TikTok shop, a few sales here and there. And then I am everywhere, basically, in Central Virginia on weekends, craft shows, fall festivals. Every weekend, I try to do at least 2, and so my helper will go out someplace, and I'll do another place, and so we kind of a 2-person effort on weekends to sort of appeal. It's kind of like marketing, because people have to see this stuff to really appreciate, the stuff.
Do you ever take any time off at all? I mean, it's like you work at night.
I will say that you mentioned earlier, like the struggles. That is the struggle of having a full-time job, a family. I don't want to have my family sacrifice because I'm away on weekends. At least part of the day, and so I've got a couple hours during the week, between my job and then starting. I get into the shop at 8 to 10:30 every night to do some of this stuff to help keep the business going, and so it is a lot. It's I feel like I'm crazy. Like I don't think people really understand like to the great lengths that I've gone through to sort of make these products and to keep them, alive and like bring them to people so where they can buy them. So
absolutely. And Cody, we got I think you have a special viewer because we got a comment from Anna Peterson saying, "Cody, your girl is watching you. She keeps waving and saying hi, Daddy, hi, Cody Lester." Feel free to wave to her and say hi.
It'll make me cry.
She's watching you now. But this has been so awesome. Really,
this is great.
We love what you do, and we're so glad.
You think someday you'll do this as a full-time job?
Well, when I started off, I wasn't making a lot of money. Now I make a good living with what I'm doing with my job, and so I really like it. So I want to lean into the sort of batch processing, hiring help to help me work through this. I'm still like the mastermind of this, of like the products that we're making, but I feel like I'm teaching my helper to sort of how to run the machine safely and be able to produce these things. And so I would like to lean into that first before I sort of jump out of my because I feel like what I'm doing with my full-time job is fulfilling in different ways. I work in healthcare, so like I feel like I'm doing good there. This is essentially for profit. So
in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, as a creative though.
Exactly. It's a creative outlet for sure.
Both sides
doing
of the
parts
brain.
with your creative brain is very important too. Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you so
Cody,
much.
thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so we ran to the end of the show.
To the finish line there.
Up to the finish line.
This is amazing. Though. I have
amazing.
to, and I've always said that. I mean, I'm not necessarily good with my hands and things that I do, but when I see things like this, where people can one, be creative, right, and 2, produce the kind of quality work that Cody's producing is to me it's amazing, right? It's impressive. Yeah.
So this has been a great show.
It has.
We had some great guests, and it was really
Corkscrew Racing,
Racing, and the Fine Grainery. So be sure to check them both out for sure. Next week, of course, we have our monthly meetup with Matthias, another awesome guest.
You didn't have to say it. As soon as I said monthly, I said Matthias.
Monthly, as soon as I say, a great recurring guest, I said, well, Matthias. This is Matthias or Miguel, right? That's who it
right.
Some great returning guests. But Matthias is on next week, so he'll be joining us for our monthly meetup. So that's always fun. It's been great having you on.
Same here. It's been fun.
With you,
always is.
With you. Thanks to everyone who commented. Really appreciate it. All our great viewers. It's always a joy to have you comment. And be sure to send us any people. If you know people that you would love to be featured on Today Mañana, feel free to reach out. And anytime. There's endless ways on social media, I think, to send comments and messages and so forth. So
absolutely,
I'll leave that to our intuitive viewers to figure that out. Figure that part out. But it's been a joy. Thank you, of course, Judah behind the camera, making us all look good. Thanks to Emergent Financial Services and to our awesome partners, Matthias, your own Realty, Craddock, Serious Insurance, Forward, Adelante. Thanks to all of you for tuning in this week. I've always appreciated it. Thanks to you for co-hosting with me.
Well, thank you for doing what you do, which is fantastic, because I can do it.
It's a joy. It's a joy. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week. But until that time, as we like to close it out on the show, hasta mañana.